Good afternoon, morning. Welcome back, everyone, to week 2 of fractions with online Mr. Haney. Today we're going to move on to fraction comparison. Now, let's review what we already know about comparing. So we have these symbols. That one, and that one. Through the years, you've probably heard these referred to as the alligator mouths. And that we're still going to use that. That works. The main idea with comparing numbers of any type is that whatever side the mouth is open towards, so if we have some little teeth, that is the greatest because the alligator, it's an alligator mouth, the alligator is greedy and hungry and it wants to eat whatever is largest. And it's like this one is kind of like the alligator's looking straight towards you. So they're both the same. So same and same when it's equal. So if we go back and we think about, let's say 8 compared to 5. Well, if we just do some dots, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We should know this, but I'm just going to review just in case. We can actually look at these dots, what you can see of them. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. We can look at these dots, and we can actually see, without even counting them, there's more here than there are here. So the alligator mouth is going to be pointing towards whatever has more. Okay. If we had 5 compared to 8, well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Once again, there's more over here, but now the alligator mouth is going to point that way. So we could read this as 8 is greater than 5. We could read this as 5 is less than 8. If we have 3 compared to 3, those are the same. And if we add the dots, we don't have to, but if we add the dots, we can see they're the same. And so we would put equal. And we could read this as 3 is equal to 3, or 3 is the same as 3. That works the same with fractions, except fractions get a little bit confusing because if you're thinking just like this, what happens every single year, and even some adults do this. Fractions are hard for adults too, believe it or not. That's why we use the manipulatives. That's why we're going to use these things. But you might see this. You might see something like this. 1/8 versus 1/5. And if you're thinking like we did up here, you're going to go, oh, well, 8 is more than 5. So this one's greater. But that is entirely wrong. Now, hopefully we've been messing around with fractions enough that at this point you can kind of get the idea that the denominator, remember, tells us the number of pieces, or the size of the pieces that it takes to make a whole. It tells us the number of pieces it takes to make a whole. And the more pieces it takes, the more parts it takes to make a whole, the smaller those pieces must be in order to fill the same space. If we have larger pieces, it doesn't take as many of them. So let's get 1/8 and 1/5 and compare them. Here's 1/8, which we should remember that if we have 8 of these, it's going to make a whole. Here's 1/5. Okay, when we look at these, we can actually see that 1/8 is smaller than 1/5. Even though the number 8 has a value that is greater than 5. But this is saying we have 1 out of 8 pieces. This is saying we have 1 out of 5 pieces. So once again, let's review. I'm going to get all 5 pieces and put them together. And I'm going to run out of space, so I'm going to move all that. I'm going to zoom out again. 3/5. How do I know that I have all my 5ths? Well, I could compare them to a whole. And right now I can look to my 5ths and I see that I do not have enough 5ths for a whole. But I can also know that the denominator, if I have the same number of pieces as I have in the denominator, and they're all equal pieces, I know I have a whole. All right, so then 5/5 makes a whole. How many eighths make a whole? And these are all hiding from me. There we are. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 eighths makes a whole, just like 5/5 makes a whole, and one whole, 1 out of 1 part of this size makes a whole. Okay, so that means that 5/5 would be equal to 8 eighths, but we actually used a fancy term for that last week, if you remember. Anybody remember what that was called? We have 5/5 and 8 eighths. They would be equal because they're the same size, but there's also that word of equivalent. 5/5 and 8 eighths are equivalent fractions because they cover the same amount of space. Okay, let's keep working with some unit fractions. Remember that unit fractions are the smallest parts that make up a whole. So if I'm working with eighths, 1/8 would be the smallest part we could work with. 1/5 would be the smallest part in fifths. This is 1/3. 1/3, if we looked at this on a paper and we just saw 1/3 compared to 1/5, again, we might think, oh, 5 is greater than 3, so then 1/5 must be greater than 1/3. But when you look at the actual parts, which is larger, 1/3 or 1/5? And then which is larger, 1/3 or 1/8? And if we were to order these from least to greatest, we have 1/8, 1/5, 1/3. Okay, if I have 1/4 here, where's it going to go in my order? Is it going to be more than 1/8, less than 1/8? Is it going to be more than 1/3, less than 1/3, more than 1/5, less than 1/5? Where should it go? Well, we have thirds, fifths, eighths. As we go left, the number in the denominator, the digit in the denominator, gets larger, but the size of the pieces gets smaller. As we go left to right, the digits get smaller, but the sizes get bigger. Well, let's look at this. Which is larger, 1/8 or 1/4? Definitely 1/4. Compared to 1/5, it's a little bit bigger. Compared to 1/3, it's smaller. So in our order, we'd have 1/8, 1/5, 1/4, 1/3. What if we had a 12th? Would that be, where's that going to go? Well, 12 is greater than 8, and it gets smaller the higher the denominator gets. So we're going to put it over here. So then using this logic, we can, when we see things like this, we can think, oh, well, thirds are greater than fifths because it takes fewer thirds to make a whole than it does fifths. So we could go ahead and put this. But here is where it gets a little confusing for everyone. Once they get that in their head, they're like, oh, okay, thirds are bigger than fifths. Cool, cool. Then they see something like this. And they say, oh, well, thirds are bigger than fifths, so 2/3 is bigger than 3/5. They might even say 2/3 versus 4/5. Well, thirds are bigger than fifths, so it's got to be this. But let's check those. Is 2/3 greater than 3/5? Is 2/3 greater than 4/5? Let me get 2/3. So here's 2/3. I'm going to make, I'm first going to show just 1/3 compared to 1/5. Okay, we remember 1/3 is greater than 1/5. But now we're going to have 2/3. If we have 2/3 compared to 2/5, 2/3 is still going to be greater than 2/5. Well, let's get a 3/5. Okay, so 2/3 is greater than 3/5. So we can make sure, we can check that and say it's correct. But 2/3 compared to 4/5, that was our other one. What do you think? Do you think that 2/3 is going to be greater than 4/5? Because 3/5 is pretty close to 2/3. So I'm thinking that if we have another piece of this size, it's going to be a little bit larger than 2/3. But let's try it. Okay, 2/3 compared to 4/5. While each of the unit fractions of 1/5 are smaller than a unit fraction of 1/3, if you have more of these, if you have enough of these, it's eventually going to be more than the thirds. It's just like you guys know, I have Lady, our little tiny miniature dachshund, and she weighs maybe 9 pounds. And some of you may have a big bulldog that weighs 100 pounds. One lady is smaller than your bulldog, but if I have 10 or 11 dachshunds and I put them all together, ultimately it's going to be bigger. So while just the one is smaller than the one, if you have enough of it, you really want to check and make sure that it's that you know for certain which one is more. Because 5/5 is going to be more than 2/3. Only thing is, once we get a third, we're back to being equal. So let's go back and check this. So we have 2/3 versus 4/5. Was this correct? Is 2/3 greater than 4/5? No, it is not. So this will be wrong. 2/3 is less than 4/5. So we would write it like this. Okay. Let's try a few others. Let's just get us a random fraction here. So we have 4/6. Okay. 4/6. And what do we want to compare it to? I'm just going to grab something else. Okay, I have 1/2. Well, there we go. 1/2. Do we think 1/2 is going to be greater than, less than, or equal to 4/6? Greater than, less than, or equal to 4/6. Well, let's think about 6. What's half of 6? Is it 2? Is 4 half of 6? 5? 3? If you said 3 is half of 6, you're correct. So I'm thinking if we have 4/6 versus 1/2, 4/6 is going to be greater. Now 3/6 would be equivalent. That would be from last week. But 4/6 is going to be greater, so we could say that as 4/6 is greater than 1/2, and to write that, we're going to put the greater than symbol, the alligator mouth, pointing towards 4/6. Okay? Today, you guys are going to receive a worksheet that is hopefully a little more complete than what I have right now. This is before I have made all the copies. Is this correct? Yep. All right. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Okay. So all of these, you guys are going to have to fill them in. Now, I know we were using fraction bars, but we can just as easily use fraction circles to represent these, which is what you see here. They have already cut these circles with partitions into the right number of parts to represent the denominator. All you guys have to do is shade in the number of parts that you see in the numerator. After you've done that, let's say we shaded in one of these sixths, and then we shade in 1/2. When we look at these, which of those is going to be more? 1/6 or 1/2? Well, we can see these parts are bigger, and we have only one of them. So then 1/2 would be greater. So you would write the alligator mouth pointing towards 1/2. So then we could read this as 1/6 is less than 1/2, or 1/2 is greater than 1/6. You're going to do that same thing for all the rest of these. And then on the back, I'm planning to have a sheet that just tells you, gives you some something kind of like this, but this is actually for tomorrow. But it'll give you something like this. It'll give you some fractions to compare. You're going to actually use your manipulatives. Oop, it fell. You're going to use your manipulatives just like I've been doing and compare those. And once you have compared them, I want you to write the correct comparison symbol greater than, less than, or equal to in the box. All right, have a great day and good luck, everyone.